Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. Today is October the 28th, 2024, and I am your host, Theophilus, and thank you for joining us. These weeks have been truly amazing. You know, with the storms in life, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, and it's been a journey of being very present and really slowing down and being patient, and really seeking God's guidance. You might be listening to this podcast for the first time and might be thinking, oh, he mentioned God. This might be a Christian podcast, whatever. It isn't. It is just a man who is imperfect, trying to do his best. And by no means am I trying to push what I believe onto anybody. But this is my own personal experience. And I hope you could learn from it and be open-minded about what you're hearing on this podcast. It's one in which, God called me to do this, of course. But, I'm of the mindset that anybody can learn from anybody. And so, typically on these podcasts, I like to share about my life, the stories that I'm and the experiences that I'm learning from, and what I'm growing from, in the hopes that it helps somebody else or benefits somebody else. It's been an incredible week, one in which that God called me to prune some things out of my life, and I needed to get rid of it and open up my capacity for other things. And so God is constantly doing that every single day, just trying to get our attention. And I've been very present to continually seek after it. And the leading of the heart by the Holy Spirit is one in which I'm constantly trying to seek. This past week, I closed down one of my businesses, and it was a very difficult decision to make. One in which that I wanted to get a return on, but the recourse of it. And I'm not going to go into any specific terms about it. Just kind of backed me up into a wall. And, it's easy in those moments of being in the present and now wondering, how did we end up here? How did I get to this place? And, one of the things that I find myself doing constantly in the imperfectness of my being is second guessing who that person was then that made that decision in the fork in the road. Granted that you made the right decision in the moment, and you prayed patiently and you sought eagerly, and you waited for God to give you the direction to move. When I look back on that journey, I think that I led well, that I asked and sought the Lord on the direction to take, and moved according to the counsel of my friends, counsel of my loved ones, and trusted in God and in how I led that journey. I liken this to we're so good at second guessing ourselves as human beings. We look at our journey and we think, how did we end up here? And it's very similar to like things like, sometimes when I leave the house and I lock the door and I'm not even across the street yet, and the instant thought is, did I lock the door? We all do that. We all second guess ourselves. I do that with the garage as well. I'm sitting in the driveway watching the door close. It closes, and then I leave, and not even 10 seconds away, I wonder if I closed it at all. And the Bible is very clear about this as well, right? It's like a man who second guesses himself, right? Sees himself in the mirror, walks away, and immediately forgets what he looks like. This is in our nature. And so, when we look at life's dilemmas and to the places that we are in life, what's amazing is that you look back and you're like, wow, that was a big mistake, and yet it led me here. And the circumstances in which I find myself, sometimes they're not good, but like God took account. God took account my stupidity. He took account my mistakes and still fit it within his will. Like, how is that even possible? there are a few things I want to share. This past week, a lot of things have happened, not just shutting down the business, and, had a good phone call with a friend of mine who is a police officer out here in Vancouver, and I hadn't talked to him in forever. It was just amazing to just be reconnected, and, even in posting about, what I've done, closing the business, whatever, like the immense amount of support that I've gotten from friends and family and loved ones. Like I can't even imagine what life would be like without these people in my life. What life would be like without God in my life, really. And how he's brought these people around me and surrounded us and supported us. By no means are we at the end of it. I have my fears, and there's something else I wanted to talk about, but sometimes I get too transparent. This is definitely not one of those times I want to talk about this story right now. But everything meets you right where you're at. Even just yesterday, Pastor Jason at my church just gave this wonderful sermon. And then really, if I just encapsulate what was the biggest takeaway for myself is, he talked about the story where Jesus is on the boat with the disciples and they're riding out a storm. And Jesus is very cozy and comfortable, lying on a bed of pillows, and just, he's out like a light. He's just, sleeping. And the disciples are freaking out. They're panicking, right? The storm is swelling and they're scared they're going to die. So you can imagine how big of a storm this is, right? And they go to wake up Jesus, and, Jesus's immediate thing is of like, why are you guys panicking? Kind of like, why are you of so little faith? Like, I love you. I'm going to take care of you. Like, why are you panicking? And, I've never seen it this way before, but, Jason's perspective on this passage is one in which we should look at our life struggles in that same light of, like, Jesus's response to the storm before the disciples woke him up was peace and rest, and just sleeping through the storm. Right, and the disciples in their moment of panic, just freaking out. Right, almost, it's very similar to the story of like, how did we end up on this boat? Like, why are we here? Like, why did we even get on this boat? This is a very bad idea. Whose idea was this? And obviously it was Jesus's idea, right? Jesus led his disciples well, right? And Jesus's approach is really what we should take to it. Our approach is panicking, freaking out, doubting God, doubting Jesus, doubting that he's powerful and that that a God of love is capable of just like letting us die, Yeah, if it's in his plans to have us die, then so be it. But like this is the God of love. Jesus is on the same boat, right? He's with us in the struggle. He's with us through the storm. And our approach really should be just to sleep through it. Just be restful through it. And when I think about that story, with this whole business, turmoil and all this stuff that I'm going through, I don't want to speak about it in specific terms. But it was one that I was very present to, and I took a very laissez, patient, quiet, humble approach rather than instigating and retaliating, rather than vengeance and resentment. I chose peace and I chose love. The prayers that I had were, that I said consciously were of love towards the other party, and that's given me the peace. That's given me peace that surpasses understanding. I couldn't. I couldn't stomach those things. If I didn't know God, I would have done some very heinous things, as you've heard me say before on this podcast. And just today, right? Proverbs 28 says, 28:6 says, "Better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than a rich man who is crooked in his ways." And I do consider myself the poor man, and I've tried to walk this line. This business would have accounted for 6 figures, a year for us, but no amount of money is worth that kind of headache. And so really had to let go of it. And so really today's podcast, I'm going to really keep this one short today, very short and simple and sweet. is not to doubt, right, where you're at. Hopefully you've walked with God and you were patient through those decisions. At every fork in the road, you were eager and waiting for God's direction. And so when you walk and you move and God tells you, this is the step I want you to go, that you take that step in faith. And I want to read to you that this passage, because it was really what guided me today in this episode. Is in Isaiah 30:21. It says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Isaiah 30:21. Is that not to doubt where God has taken you. And maybe the reassurance is that, and this is something that my pastor Jason has reiterated to me in the past. Every time I've faced kind of this dilemma of what do I do next, like where am I supposed to go next, as human beings, we're very go and just want to know where the next place is to go. Is like, are there times where you will walk a path and suddenly find yourself very lost and confused and disoriented, and you look around and you're like, wait, Jesus, where did you go? How come you're not walking with me anymore? That happens as well. The beauty of it is when you look back, you'll see Jesus at the mile marker, the last mile marker, where he told you specific directions, right? And he's waiting there for you. He's patiently waiting there for you. And you only have to go back and say, Lord, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to walk away by myself or try these things on my own. So he's waiting for you like a patient father, humble father would wait, right? Would wait on their children. Oh, I never told you to take that step. Come back to me and let's continue this again. And let's start over again. And he's there. He's always there. He's always waiting. And so if you've been called to move forward, right? And set a new mile marker. Lord, this is what you called me to do. Take the right path. But then later on, don't look back and think, man, how did I end up here? How did I end up in the desert? Why am I here? Oh, it's better to go back into slavery. That's the last thing you want, right? And trusting that God had a reason for you to end up where you are. When I look back on my life and I see everything that I've gone through, how I became a father, how I married my wife, how I got into wanting to go to school to be a police officer, why I was a missionary in China with my parents, in China as well. How did I end up on all those walks of life? How did these people come into my life? Why am I not close with these people anymore? All of those things took into account the journey and the place that I was at. And to look back and think that was a mistake, or I did this wrong, or I did that wrong, it's just not right. God had his reason. God brought those people into your life. God brought those experiences into your life for a reason. And so I hope this moves you to think about your life a little bit more positively, right? If indeed you are walking a path that God never called you to, then it's time to repent and go and look back and find God. Where is the marker that he last said? What was the last thing he told me to do? And go and do that thing. And that's what I'm patiently learning to do, letting go of the business and the stress involved with it and the heartache that it brought me and my family. The lack of presence that I felt while I was dealing with it really took me away from being who I was called to be. And now that it's gone, it's opened my capacity for more, and it's freed me up, right, to do all these other things. I don't know what the direction is. I don't know what the next thing is, but God has called me to do this noble father work, doing these podcasts, doing the meetups, planning the retreats, and these are the things that I'm going to do and focus on. And so hopefully this episode today finds you well, that you understand that your journey, no matter how many turns you've taken that are wrong, God is still there to guide you. And ultimately that you should look back on your journey and find him, find God, because there's nobody greater. I can tell you right now, there's nobody greater. And that's not any kind of pushing. This is purely open-minded stuff. Consider it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. This journey is one in which we can't go on it alone. And so if you're a father who's watching this and wondering, man, I could really use some community, I really need people who won't co-sign my bullshit, like, please reach out. Don't go it alone. I've reiterated this over and over again, even to my family, and I talked to my son about this yesterday, is that we as leaders of the family, fathers and husbands, men, are leaders. We're called to be leaders. For that reason, we are a priority. We cannot give from an empty cup. We have to take the lion's share. We have to take care of ourselves and give from a full cup. And so your life and your leadership is critical to your family's development, to your family's future. And so what price is that? What value can be put on that? Noble Father is now a premium membership community, and it's not anything expensive. $25 a month for you to invest in yourself, find good community, find a space where you can open up and be yourself and talk about who you are with other people who understand and receive you and want the best for you. Like, what is that worth? What is that worth in this world? There's not a lot of spaces like that. And so if you can get that for $25 a month, I mean, golly, like, if you're not worth $25 a month and your development is not worth $25 a month, I'd ask you to ask yourself, like, what is the point? Like, why are we alive? What are you worth, right? I know coaching programs that cost way more than that, infinitely more than that. Just $25 a month. Think about it and consider it. If you want any details about it, I'll leave a link in the description. And let me see. Yeah, we're also doing a mastermind. So this Tuesday coming up, tomorrow actually, we're having a mastermind where we talk about our goals together. Fathers that are in our community will gather and talk about all the things that we're going through. What are the goals that we hit this week or this month? And what are the goals ahead in the month to come? And how can we crush it together? This is just another way to grow as fathers. And so if you're listening to this for the first time, we have a 30-day trial that you can take advantage of. Take advantage of the trial and you'll be able to attend all our meetups, attend all our events, and connect with all the fathers within our community. We also have a Bible study that meets on Wednesdays as well. And that's at our regular time at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. If that's your thing, you can come and check us out as well. And so, yeah, if you are listening to this for the first time, know that we're not promised tomorrow. And so that means that we need to be present, and really stay noble, in this dark world. And so thank you for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.